وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Allah reminds us, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. You who believe, be mindful of Allah as is His due, and make sure you devote yourselves to Him to your dying moment. And He reminds us, يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. People, be mindful of your Lord who created you from a single soul, and from it created its mate, and from the pair of them spread countless men and women far and wide. Be mindful of Allah, in whose name you make requests of one another. Beware of severing the ties of kinship. Allah is always watching over you. And He reminds us, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Believers, be mindful of Allah, speak in a direct fashion and to good purpose, and He will put your deeds right for you and forgive you your sins. Whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger will truly achieve a great triumph. Inshallah, today I will begin a series of khutbah that will go possibly 7 to 8 weeks, inshallah, which would be 7 to 8 months, as I am here at your pleasure once a month. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said once to his companions that you will find that people are mines of gold and silver. You will find that people are mines of gold and silver. The best of you in the time of ignorance before Islam will be the best of you in Islam if they gain understanding of this religion. Now, what Rasulullah ﷺ is articulating in this amazing hadith, in this amazing statement, I will say it again. You'll find that people are mines of gold and silver. The best of you in the time of ignorance before Islam will be the best of you in Islam if they gain understanding of this religion. What Rasulullah ﷺ is telling us is that if you gain a belief and understanding of this guidance from Allah, it brings out intrinsic goodness, human goodness, in anyone, even the best of people. Okay? So the Prophet ﷺ is recognizing and he is articulating that human beings have incredible potential. Every human being, by the fact that he is or she is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by God, has incredible potential. And this incredible potential is there intrinsically. It's there, that is part of their character. And those who are good without guidance become even better with guidance. Those who are good without guidance, because they have recognized their potential and they have realized their potential, become even better when that potential is combined with an understanding and an alignment with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with guidance from God. So the corollary is also very likely to be in operation. And the corollary is that unless Muslims who would claim to have guidance from God because they believe in Allah, they believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they say that they read the Quran, they say that they deal with the text and they deal with the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they deal with the elucidation that is part of the hadith, right, from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We claim this, we as Muslims claim that we have this beautiful guidance. But we have to recognize that our native understanding of that guidance if it is not at par with how the Prophet intended for this message to be understood, then we will not be able to realize the full potential of this native goodness. People are like mines of gold and silver. That native goodness cannot be realized unless we perfect or unless we improve on the way to perfection our understanding of this guidance. The need for a deeper understanding of Islam in order to achieve excellence is what is clearly applicable to us as the Muslim American community. It's applicable to any community, but for us, where we face a scenario and a context where we are a minority, it is doubly, triply important that we truly engage with the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and get a sound understanding of this. The American Muslim community is intelligent, it's industrious, and it is uniquely promising. Because unlike other Muslim majority countries, you have a scenario that is replicated only in one other place and at a certain time of the year. You go to Hajj, what will you see? Muslims from every walk of life, every ethnic group, every language. What do you see in this masjid, right here? You see exactly the same thing. You have people who speak Arabic of different lahja, right? The Iraqi, the Suri, the Somali, the Egyptian, the Kuwaiti. You have people from India and Pakistan. You have people from Malaysia and Indonesia. You have people from the north of Africa who speak a lahja in Arabic that people from Syria can't understand. And everybody understands Egyptian because of the TV shows. Everybody understands Egyptian. But not everybody understands Moroccan. This is the level of diversity that the Ummah experiences. And we experience this diversity in America. And so there is this incredible opportunity that when a diverse group of people come together, that's what the Muslim community is, although it's a minority in this country, and they realize a proper, sound understanding of Islam, then we will recognize and realize the wisdom of this hadith. People are like mines of gold and silver, as the Prophet said, and though the best of you before Islam, that is before a sound understanding of Islam, are going to be the best after Islam. If they gain, that was the condition, if they gain an understanding of this view. So the need for a very deep understanding of Islam for both personal and community growth is critical. There is no doubt about this. So the question is, if you ask any Muslim American community in America today, do you have a sound understanding of Islam? How would they self-assess? What would they say is their self-assessment? You should be asking yourself that question as a community. We should be asking that question as a community. What is our understanding of Islam? Is it the level to which the Prophet left and bequeathed this understanding with his companions? Is it lower than it? Is it higher than it? Where is our understanding of Islam? And so scholars have looked at this question, particularly for the context of the American situation. And they have identified a number of critical ideas, of which I'll deal with just one today, and very briefly. The first idea is the ability to trust the process of reasoning. This is a critical feature of the Muslim tradition. Belief in the Muslim tradition is a rational process. It's not irrational. And in the modern context, when our children face tremendous pressures, 1 out of 3 Muslim American children feel traumatized. Why? Because they have to deal with the shadow of 9/11. They have to deal with the shadow of amazingly horrific acts overseas that are associated, violence that is associated with Muslims and essentialized with Islam. And so a young Muslim child, a girl or a boy, faces that tremendous unstated pressure at the time when they deal with their peers. They face tremendous pressure. This is statistically and research-wise proven 1 out of 3 Muslim kids is facing this. So our ability to understand Islam and give this confidence that this tradition is sound, this tradition has created value in the past, communal value in the past, and personal value, and it can yet again create that. That is an important gift that we can give our children. But it cannot happen without a sound understanding of Islam. And that sound understanding of Islam cannot be acquired without a clear trusting in the process of reason, this rational understanding of Islam. So that's the first thing. The second, for communal development, the scholars have identified the idea of respecting dissent. None of you is the same as anyone else in this room. Each one of you is unique. And we have to recognize that we are going to have differences in how we approach things and how we do things. That we have certain essential things that we agree upon, and then there are many other things where we will dissent, we will disagree. And respecting that dissent and respecting our ability to disagree and still work together is critical for communal health. The health of this community is extremely important. A third idea is that we have to begin, and many of us do this, and this mosque in particular, I call your attention to that, this mosque in particular emphasizes this idea of societal obligations. We have an obligation to the society at large, to everyone in this society. And perhaps in some of our minds, we owe our support and our help to those who are needy in the Muslim community. They're part of the community, but the community is much larger than the Muslims who are part of this community. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stresses Amr bil Ma'ruf, doing good, this Amr bil Ma'ruf, this doing good, is to the rest of society. That includes Muslims and everyone else. So we need to understand this particular masjid, probably of the masajid that I travel to, comes at the top 50% of those who are dedicated to serving the larger community. Okay, which is a great thing, and you just need to keep doing that and doing more of it. The fourth idea is we have to learn how to set priorities. We need to understand that our resources are never unlimited. There is no resource that is an unlimited resource other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything else is constrained by design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we need to learn how to set priorities. You have so many hundreds of thousands of dollars each year to run your mosque. How are you going to use it? Are you going to spend it on beautifying the mosque, which is a great thing to do? Or are you going to spend it on finding the best qualified imam, because that's an even important thing to do, even more important thing to do? Or are you going to find a highly qualified and empathetic youth director who will connect with the youth and help them be strong and steadfast? Which is even more important than the imam. What is your priority? I just stated a set of priorities to you. Do you dissent with me? Do you agree with me? These are priorities you have to set. If you do not want to lose your youth, you have to invest in your youth. And a beautiful chandelier is not going to invest in your youth. As beautiful as that is not the best use of your funds. Please, I apologize if those of you who decided to buy that chandelier now feel pressure. It's great, it's wonderful. And it's not that expensive, alhamdulillah.
That was
But,
a gift.
what's that?
That was a gift.
MashaAllah, that's great. Now we need the rest of us to give the gift of being able to hire a youth director who will inspire all of our youth in this masjid, and their hearts are connected to this space. That will be a gift better than that one. Absolutely no doubt about it, because now you've decided what your priority is, and you've decided rationally what the requirement is, and you've fulfilled that requirement. So I invite us to really consider, do we understand, as the Prophet said, in order to realize, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the potential that all human beings are mines of gold and silver. There's huge, incredible potential. But if you're going to realize it, our understanding of Islam has to be sound. Our ability to trust in our reasoning capacity has to be sound. Our ability to respect dissent with each other and still work with each other has to be very well developed. Our ability to stress our obligation to the rest of society must be prioritized over other priorities. And then this idea of continuously reassessing our priorities and setting them properly. And reassessing them and seeing if things have changed so that we can reset our priorities. This is a skill and a need of all times, but particularly today. So I invite you to think about these ideas, and inshallah we'll engage a bit more in the second half of the khutbah on this idea of trusting reason. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has endowed human beings with dignity. لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Indeed, we have dignified the children of Adam. And what is the core sign of this dignity? It's the capacity to reason. It's the capacity to think. That is the core source of this dignity that Allah says that He has granted human beings. It is the defining feature of human beings, their ability to reason. And when we see that there is a rational order to the universe around us, our ability to rationally understand it, perceive it, discover it, creates that resonance in our hearts and in our minds. That this creation of Allah is open to be understood by our intellect. It's not hidden from us. And the fact that in Muslim history, scholars of the Quran, scholars of the text, understood this message is what resulted in these same scholars becoming Renaissance men and women who were amazing mathematicians, who were amazing scientists, who were amazing architects, who were amazing at whatever else they put their hand to and their mind to, because of this amazing capacity to think rationally, to think logically. This is a requirement of the faith. And the protection and the preservation and the cultivation of the power to reason is one of the dictates of this whole religious tradition. To use the term Sharia, the purpose of the Sharia, the purpose of Sharia, the purpose of this structure of legal thought and spiritual thought and juristic thought, all of this structure that we call the Sharia, its final end purpose is the preservation, protection, and the cultivation of the ability to reason. Moral responsibility. You are obliged to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but there's a prerequisite. Every one of you is obliged to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is a prerequisite, and that prerequisite is that you must not have absent the ability to reason. A child who's underage, who has not reached the age of cultural puberty, is not obliged to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person who lacks the capacity, we'll use the term insane. That's an old term that Sharia scholars used to use. We use different terms today. But a person who does not have certain rational capacity is not any longer obliged to obey Allah's commands. You are obliged to obey Allah's commands because you have the rational capacity to understand His commands. But that requires comprehending what Allah is asking us to do. But if you don't have that capacity, then you're not obliged. There's no obligation. There's no taklif. The mutakallif or the mukallaf is the one who has the rational capacity, and that's the prerequisite, and then begins to use it. The Quran repeatedly refers to the excellence of the process of reasoning and deems it a principal source of guidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us His words. that is the Quran. But it needs to be read. It needs to be comprehended. And without the capacity of rational thought, you cannot comprehend the Quran. That itself is the one and only proof you need of this place of reason within this tradition. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. In this manner, God makes His signs clear for you that perhaps you may reason. You may reason. There are so many verses that invite you to reflect and think about the universe, about what you observe, about the trees and the fact that they grow, and then the leaves fall, and then the leaves come back again the next spring. All the leaves are falling outside. They'll be bare through the winter, and then all the leaves will come back. This is a great sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can choose to blind ourselves to that, or we can choose to see that this is a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of the rational orderliness of the universe around us. Allah says, وَهُوَ الَّذِي يُحْيِي وَيُمِيتُ وَلَهُ اخْتِلَافُ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Allah is the one who gives life and death, and to God belongs the alteration of the night and the day. Do human beings not reason then? Don't they think about this? Right? It's again an invitation for us to think and to ponder and to act rationally. There are Muslims living today who don't behave rationally. Shame on them, and a great obligation on the rest of us to deal with that situation. To deal with that situation. Allah says, وَيَجْعَلُ الرِّجْسَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. This is a threat from Allah. This is a straight up threat. Allah will put a loathsome chastisement upon those who do not use their reason. And in many ways, if the Muslim community worldwide suffers, we have to rationally think about why it suffers. What is the reason? Because if you don't have the capacity to reason through why Muslims all over the world suffer, then we will never get ourselves under it. That itself is proof that the place of reason is the way it is in the Muslim tradition. You must be able to think through what is the problem before you can define what is the solution. This is obvious to us. It's obvious to us if we take off our Muslim hats and put our science hats and business hats and all the other hats that we wear. It's obvious to us. Why then do we then abandon it when it comes to understanding guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When He tells us how He views the proper use of reason. So I invite us to think about this deeply, and I will end with the scholar Raghib al-Isfahani, who was a contemporary of Imam al-Ghazali, who most of you know, but very few of us know Raghib al-Isfahani. Almost all of us know Ghazali. That name is very famous in Muslim tradition, but not Raghib al-Isfahani. But Raghib al-Isfahani said, never be satisfied with a person's understanding of Islam. He said, with a person's Islam, until you have tested his, what do you think he said? His reason, his capacity to reason, his capacity to argue through a point, an issue, an idea. Never trust the person's understanding of Islam until you have tested his capacity to reason. We have to revive, rejuvenate this singular understanding of the rationalness of this guidance that is the Quran. The Quran is a guidance that appeals to our intellect, that appeals to our ability to understand and reason. Because this is how Allah created us, and because He created us this way, He appeals to us in this rational way. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به. واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. واقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر.